Hello, guys. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. We got today a great guest, Canadian beekeeper. I'm gonna go like massive welcome and our guest Ian Steppler. A lot of beekeepers know him really well. I bet a lot of people know him. So, how you feeling, Ian, today? I know you're probably very busy digging your
Yeah,
snow out.
that we are doing indeed. Yeah, thanks, Sebastian, for having me on here. I'm just on my way back from the shop, so my tire is a little bit sloppy, so you have to excuse my dress. But busy day
I
today.
have
I'm in
some.
the shop.
I have some different dress. You see this? You should know this in Canada.
I'm having trouble reading that. Pumpkin Commonwealth. Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know that in Canada. Probably
Well, we
lots of
have
people growing
yeah,
pumpkin
we
growers.
have
Lots.
people that grow growers here. Yeah, we do. You bet. Yeah. Are you part of an association then? Is that?
Yeah, I'm running with there's one guy actually from Quebec. Tot. He's one of a guy who is sitting with me in the chair on our association around the world.
Oh,
So I'm not
really?
just run. Yes, yes.
Yeah, around here we have a place
Quite.
called Roland. It's a small little town, and they have a competition every fall on the growing the giant pumpkins.
Yeah.
So maybe they're associated with your efforts. Then maybe.
Yeah, there is. There is. Fred
Oh,
Amson is one of the biggest grower in Canada, and then Todd Clean is quite know lots of people in, so he's growing for years. There's a lot of good growers in Canada anyway. But we are
yeah, yeah.
everywhere
The
around
guys
the
had,
Europe. Yeah,
or sorry,
yeah,
yeah, the guys had
yeah.
trouble growing pumpkins last year.
Yeah, temperature. Yeah, the weather
Yeah,
was
it was
not
too
great. It
hot,
was
and
here. Yeah, and then there was nights very cold as well. So that's the problem. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Ian, I have a couple of questions for you, if that's all right.
Sure, sure.
I just was so love you
Yeah,
getting
first,
you on there on my channel,
but
and
before you start the questions, I want to ask you a question. I
yeah,
noticed there's about a 5 second delay or maybe a 3 second delay, so I'll just have to
uh,
manage that. But where are you? You're in the UK, right? You said
yeah,
UK
I'm in
there.
UK,
Whereabouts in the UK are you?
south of UK, Southampton. So
Southampton.
it's that the south of UK, yeah. So
Uh,
are you going on the map?
on my
Yeah,
map here, I'll try to
yeah,
find just down at the bottom around where you can't
yeah,
see the
yeah,
glare.
yeah, yeah. That's south in the middle of the south UK. If you can go finger down. No, down, finger, down, finger. Yeah, I got no, I don't see because it's yeah, a little bit down.
Oh,
Can you get closer? Can you get closer, camera? Um, it's yeah, it's on the south, that the south UK in there. Yeah, in the middle.
okay,
It's Portsmouth.
close to London.
Yes, little bit cross. You have there probably Portsmouth.
Oh,
It's
okay,
in this.
yeah.
Yeah, it's on the close to the sea, very close to the sea. I go probably 4 miles to the sea
So you'll be
to the
on the
south.
English Channel then.
Yeah. We're very close to the English Channel. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason why I said that is because everybody who I speak to gets a pin on my calendar there, and as you can
Yes.
see, North America is just littered with pins, and I'm starting to get some
Yeah.
pins over in Europe and places
Yeah.
and down in Australia. So you're going to get a pin.
Thank you. Wow. Um, that's really great. Um, so so I got a question for
There.
you. It's a lot of people asking. You running a big operation, 1,500 hives. Um, you I'm in the backyard beekeeper. I would love to do what you're doing. It's time slow. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you could be doing it." No, it's not. It's got to be done slow. So you don't know my background a little bit. I'll give you my background a little bit because
Yeah.
I was watching you as we chat sometime. But so I run in a backyard. We run at 26 hives I run right now for a few years beekeeping. got quite nice colony. Like you say, always getting bees got to be calm and working bees, and so and in this year we trying to do up to 35, 40 hives. I know it's easy to do, but it's all about selection, the queens and everything. Got to make sure there's a right tempo of the queens and everything because this is for next few years. This is for me important. But what I like in your operation, what's really crucial, last year I lost one colony. It was swarm, which I didn't put my hands in there. I just let him go, see what happened. And a lot of people say you should give him treatment properly, treat him really heavily. So I didn't done it. I just see what's happened and basically gone. So, but this year so far, I'm doing so far. So far, we'll see next 6 weeks. But right now it's 26, 26. So I done again two different size of the frames. I running a national and a Langstroth, which I prefer Langstroths. Really, like yourself, you work in a Langstroth, it's completely different work. Bees completely working different as well. So yeah, it's absolutely completely different beekeeping what you're doing beekeeping. Um, so that's my. I know you're running 1,500, but a lot of people ask him questions. I know a lot of people do popping up. I would love to know what's your the 1,500 hives. What's the average in a year per hive of honey? In
Yeah.
roughly.
So if I look at my colony production, it's all based on the type of crops that are around. What would you say, Sebastian, would be your crops within your area that you collect your honey crop on?
Well, this year we got a couple hives. I have Carnoles one queens. They are really shocked me up what they went really well. They've been around about 100, £102 was average was there on these
Oh yeah,
colonies.
that's off canola.
Yeah, Carnoles, yeah. Backfast was a little bit
Okay.
different. But Carnoles, they're not eating much, they don't I believe they even you could see over winter backfast is eating more storage. You could see one of my video actually last one. I actually asked just a short see what you could be if you don't check your height just to lift the roof up. What could be effect?
Yeah.
You were basically shocked how quick they eat the storage big backfast and Carnolia is completely still heavy where they don't take anything yet. They're still using the storage what they have. It's completely different. So it's the
Oh
same
yeah. So
in.
that canola that you have would be a winter type variety of canola, I guess, right?
Yeah, I say Carnolia Queen.
Oh,
Carnolia
I see.
Queen. Not. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
They
What
we
kind
have
of what kind of honey
we have.
crop do you have out in the area? Like what kind of crops are you gathering off of?
So the first year on early in the season we have dandelions. You got to be you got to be the right temperature, however, right in time. One of my acres is quite in a nice place where it's quite massively dandelions in early year.
Oh yeah.
And then you got a lot of different mixture. We got a lot of pumpkins growing around in my area. They grow small pumpkins. The last year we have really good crop of pumpkins. And then you got linden honey.
Oh yeah. That
Yeah,
would be your
it
main honey flow would be the linden, right?
oh absolutely, yeah, amazing,
Yeah.
absolutely. I have just behind my hives probably around about 100 trees, just
Oh wow.
about 20 meters.
Oh
The
yeah. So
trees
what
just
time of month would that be? Would that be June? The lindens
yes,
come out?
June, yeah, June, July, yeah, June. Most of the June depends on temperatures. It depends now. You see
Yeah.
now, a couple days ago was been just checking in, and that was crazy. What's going on in there? The bees started bringing pollen. It was 13 plus, and the bees was bringing a massive amount of pollen. And not just the one. It was three different pollens. Um, was red and what's the name? It was red and white. Hello, Bruce.
What's up,
It's
guys? You
Looks
guys
like you're
hear
in a
me?
bee yard.
nice
Can
to
you, can you
nice to
hear me
get you
okay?
as well.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we see you, hear you okay as well. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure how my data or my cell service is here, but looks like
But
it's
don't
doing
worry.
okay.
But Ian, his heart is alright. Today, is it, Ian? His
What's
heart
that?
is up now. Your heart is up. It's okay.
Yeah.
Normally,
Okay.
it's down.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Alabama.
Alabama, yeah.
Yeah, Alabama. That's right.
So if anybody know, I would like welcome as well Bruce. Bruce is from Alabama, from South US, beekeeper, and he did it this year. He put his bees on. So if you is watching his channel, please go and subscribe his channel. It's really nice videos in there, making everything. A lot of good details in there.
And from what I understand, Bruce is working bees right now, and I'm working snowbanks right now.
Well, I've been out feeding today mostly. I went through some before I came up to this bee yard, and they're looking pretty strong. They're a little mad and mean for some reason right now, but
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I think
yeah.
we have just inconsistent weather here this time of the year, so it'll be warm for a few days and it gets cold for a few days, and
Yeah.
we'll have a short brief flow and then it gets cold and the flow stops, and so they start to build up, and then I think they just get angry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the bees feeding on right now for a flow?
Well, we had our red maple, I think, is done. We've got some what we call wild mustard around here. It's yellow flowers. A lot of the farmers plant it, I think, as a cover crop in the winter. I don't know. They're bringing in some yellow pollen and that's probably from the mustard. They're bringing in some green pollen. I have no idea what that is. It's a light green color.
That mustard would be dynamite. That's good nectar, good pollen. It's very highly nutritious stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what they explode on. A lot of the farmers use it. I know in some areas of the country they probably use clover. Yeah. We also have a lot of ryegrass, which does nothing for the bees. But you drive past these fields where the cotton was and the peanuts, and it's just a lot of them have just a perfectly yellow.
Oh, that's what they're doing. That's a cover crop just to prevent from wind erosion and shit, right?
I think mostly probably just to restore the nitrogen in the soil.
Yeah.
So when they plant the crops in the spring, well, they're going to be planting here probably the next month or two, like cotton and peanuts. They can have the nutrients replenished by the winter crops. We don't have a lot of wind. We do have quite a bit of rain, but we just don't get a lot of nasty wind. You know, we get a little bit, but nothing like what you guys get up there. But
so are they? What's their rotation then with the cotton? And they have it rotated out with other crops, though, right? They don't go right back to back.
Around here, it's mostly cotton and peanuts, and I've seen them actually planting cotton year after year. I think when they plant these cover crops, and with some of the nutrition they do, the cotton just like I know of some fields where they've planted cotton 2 and 3 years in a row. But they typically they'll rotate. Mostly we have peanuts and cotton and maybe a little bit of soybeans, but it's not a real wide variety of crops around here. There's a few other things, but I'm not even sure what some of it is, but mostly is cotton and peanuts is the big crop. Dothan, where I live, we call ourselves the peanut capital of the world. Although I've noticed much more cotton is grown here than previously, but there's a lot of cotton, which is great for beekeepers.
With the peanut crop, is there any flower on that's attractive to the bees, or is it just a right?
It flowers, but I don't believe it's nutritious for the bees necessarily. I think it's just a flowering. I think it's just a flowering plant. Mostly the cotton is extremely nutritious for the bees.
Really?
Do you grow in Ian or Bruce? They do grow in your area a Phacelia?
I don't think so.
No, only the Phacelia that I grow. No, it doesn't. It's not Phacelia. We can maybe mix it into some cover crops if we want to. The seed's expensive. Is for the bees. I mean, oh man, it flowers for a long time. Pollen's very nutritious. It provides lots of nectar. So I kind of put it into my little
honey is incredible.
Oh, it is. I've never collected enough honey to be able to tell. No.
Oh wow! It's my father-in-law. They have just behind April, quite about 1.5 hectares. They seeding twice in a year la green manure there, and the crop of the honey is just incredible. And I tested here. I have one year on my 1 April where I have smaller couple of hives over there. It was really nice honey there. So I definitely believe this is the best crop. It's better. I believe it's better. You could do twice in more, or you're doing sunflowers, I believe. because sunflowers take a long time to grow. And I believe in time when you get the flowering, you probably have Phacelia already flowering once. And when you cut the Phacelia and just reseed it again, before sunflower is ready to get the pollen, I believe Phacelia's got second height already.
Oh yeah,
Because I know
that helps out quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. If you imagine you should try. You should try.
I think Ian's got plenty of canola up there, man. You got
Yeah, I know. He's a called master canola beekeeper.
So Ian, what are your primary crops, Ian? Do you use it mostly canola, or do you have other stuff that blooms and up there?
Yeah, we grow it all pretty much except for potatoes. There's potato property further away, but it requires more of a sandy soil. We have too many stones up here for that. But we like primarily canola will be 1,500 acres of canola. Then we rotate the rest of the farm with wheat and oats, corn. We grow more corn now because the varieties coming out are more cold tolerant, but we also grow our silage. So there's a good complement of our farm to the silage. Then we grow beans and, peas and sunflowers. We're getting into sunflowers now, which is really good for the bees because after the canola blooms, our sunflower acres, we kind of strategize where we grow it just to help provide that nectar flow, because after the canola is done, steps right into the sunflowers and it gets us close to the end of the season. So it works out really well that way. Yeah,
that's how we utilize the cotton here. Our main two honey flows here are Chinese privet and Chinese tallow, which are both invasive species that people hate except for beekeepers. The tallow is the biggest. It's just both of those plants you can't get rid of. The tallow tree, it literally like drips nectar, but it blooms like mid-May to mid-June, and then it's pretty much done. So after that, we have a few little things, like we have a little clover in the springtime. Like I said, we have the red maple, just a few things. We have tulip poplar, but those things are mostly done by mid-June, early July at the very latest, mid-June really. And then it's just a dearth here, except for cotton. And cotton will start to bloom usually late July or August. And there's a lot of fields that are planted a little bit staggered around here. So some of them are planted a little bit earlier than others. So cotton seems to bloom for several weeks. And that gets us into the, August, September. If you got bees on cotton down here, August, September, it saves you. If you don't, then it's very difficult. Beekeeping is very difficult. And then in the fall, of course, we have the aster and the goldenrod that kick in. This past year, we actually had the goldenrod was crazy. I don't harvest the goldenrod or take anything from the bees in the fall, but boy, from about mid to late June until mid-September, late August or early September, there was just nothing. And so you can just have colonies crash. It's just the bees are angry and mad, and it is not really fun to be a beekeeper. Then now, if you've got cotton, it's a whole different thing. It's like they're just in a new flow. They start producing drones. You can split with cells and everything when they're on cotton in the late summer. It's very hot, but that cotton just is a lifesaver. So
how are they with spraying for the cotton? They have a weevil in them, think, eh? Do they spray much?
Yeah, they do, but I think they're pretty careful, especially if they know bees are around. And I've had no issues with that. I think I don't know. I haven't had any issues with that. Now, not to say I can't, but most of the farmers where I have bees, they know I've got bees there, and so I think they try to be pretty careful.
Yeah, that's the same with my neighbors up here too, and our farm, of course. We farmers seem to be a little more aware of the beneficials with not just the honeybees, but beneficial insects in general, and they seem to be a little more sensitive to spraying the heavy compounds down. So if they have to do a broadcast spray, they try to target during times of the day where it doesn't hurt the beneficials as much, and they're using better chemistries to help control the insects. So I think, things are coming along. I think if we just keep communicating with the farmers, like you're saying, it's just touching base to make sure that you're there, then I don't think they're going to bother you. How about your Bruce, your bees out in the in California? On your last chat, I just kind of asked you a question. They're doing all right out there. How far through the bloom are the bees right now on the almonds?
Well, Jose, it's interesting because Jose, the California beekeeper, Williams, which is where our bees are, is an area that he works. Our bees have not gone to Northern California previously the last couple of years. This year they're there, and apparently in Northern California, in that Williams area near where Jose is,
Okay.
The bloom, it's a little cooler there, I think, but the bloom is more vibrant and faster. So the bees
Okay.
get their it's earlier, more vibrant and faster. And so I think they're probably in bloom now. They'll be coming home first week in March, and we sent them out the
Holy.
last week in, January. So really they're not out there more than about 4 or 5 weeks.
Wow, that's
Plenty
quick.
splits going.
What's
Plenty
that?
splits going. Plenty splits going.
Oh
You will
yeah, when
plenty
they get
split.
back, I've got even my bees here. If I could get a hold of some queens, I'd start splitting right now. I've got to get my numbers back up. I lost a bunch, but yeah, as
But,
far as the California bees, they met grade. They were pleased with them, and the past 2 years, even though they weren't in the supposedly Northern California is the ideal area. I didn't know that, but apparently there's water's more plentiful and stuff up there where they're at. So
Oh, I
we've
see.
got them in a really good. Jose was really, that's right where he lives, not far from there. I guess that's where he takes bees over there. He said
Okay.
it's a
yeah.
great area, and so he's kind of keeping me posted about the environment and the actual customer out there. The broker was, they were well pleased. They met great, and so we've already got paid half the money. The check I'll be getting that check tomorrow for half the money. So
Good deal. Would
nice and
grade
something
be,
going.
or sorry, Sebastian, I stepped on you. Would grade be like 7 frames or 6 frames of bees, or
eight
what's the
eight
grade?
frame average.
8
Eight frame
frames.
average. So you
I
want to
know, yeah.
have, you'll have some that are 6 or 7, but most of mine were probably more like 9 or 10 or more. I mean, I had some that were just
Wow.
packed out, probably I would say
Power.
12 or 13
Power.
frame
Yeah,
colonies.
yeah.
I had a couple that were probably 6 when I looked at them before they left, but they had brood in them, I hope, and so that brood will emerge. And by the time they actually graded them, I'm sure some of those were at 8 frames as well.
Good
We
deal.
had our commitment between me and the 2 guys that I went out with was 288. I sent 48. Davis sent 192, and then I think my other buddy sent 48. The other guy, actually my mentor, was the other guy, and I guess out of this 288, there were 2 dead outs when they did the inspection. So when you think about it, sending them over across the country on a semi truck, only to have
There's a
2
lot
out
of
of
stress.
288 that were dead, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So
That's a lot of stress for the bees as well. Traveling on the
it
trailer
is, but they
for how
hit the
many
ground.
hours?
The almonds are extremely good for the bees.
Yeah.
The pollen and the nectar, I think, are both now. The honey is nasty, so we let the bees keep that when they get it back. But I think that the actual nutrition is really good with the almonds, and so we're through. When they come back strong, the issue is mites or diseases you can catch out there with a lot of bees around.
Yeah.
But
That's
I've never seen any of that. I've seen mites, but I haven't seen any issues with beetles or other diseases that I could tell.
Don't tell me any dollar values because that's none of my business. But are the brokers out in California? I'm hearing there's surplus of bees out there right now. So is that making a depressed price?
This year there is. From what I understand, they're not requiring as many bees per acre, and I think some of the almond down south a little bit, they're starting to plow some of the almonds because it's so dry they can't raise them down. So I think there's not as much of a demand. I can tell you our condo, it was about $200 is what they paid out per colony, and we're going to clear after everything somewhere around, I think, 130, 125, 130 per colony. And that's not bad. The key is that you get in with someone that still has a demand. And fortunately, we were able, my buddy Davis was able to, there's another young guy in my video on loading them up. This young guy, Tyler, the group he's with, they've gone all in commercial the last few years. And they've got a huge contract that they're trying to fill. And so I think we'll be okay,
I see.
At least for the next few years. We just happen to have a good situation going. But a lot of people, some people have just canceled loads from what I've heard this year.
Yeah, I heard the price of almonds is below $2 a pound, and I'm not sure what that means, but I'm told that's a bad price. So would that be leading up to some of the reasons why they're not stocking per acre as heavy then?
It could. Jose would be a better one to ask. The way I do it is my buddy Davis kind of figures it out, and then I tell him how many I think I can send, and then he kind of helps figure that out. And so I'm not sure of all the he could tell you all the little details. Probably he knows a lot of the big commercial guys down south, close by here. And he's actually friend. It's interesting. Davis is actually a banker, and he's a solid beekeeper trying to go. And then this Tyler guy, he's also into banking and finance, but I think he's trying to go full-time bees. I think he has 600 or 700 now. But their family, his in-laws are the ones that went all in. And I think they've got a couple thousand They've just built up in the probably in the past. I think they started keeping bees in 2018, and I think they bought a bunch of nukes and bought all the equipment and just kind of went all in with it. So they just went all in with it. But
all right, Bruce. Well, I got you here today, so I got a question for you because a lot of beekeepers in UK are very worried because there was a lot of importing bees, queens, and previous years from Europe, from Italy. I did ask Greg before, and I would like to get your opinion. How do you prevent hive beetles? I know they're not nice. They could destroy any colonies as well,
it's
any strong
interesting.
colonies.
It's interesting. I'm already dealing with it today. I've been treating for beetles, so I use these beetle blasters. It's one thing I use. You might be familiar with them. I also use these towels. Dixie, they're called Dixie H700 towels. They're like the Swiffer sheets.
Yeah.
Right here.
Oh,
you can rip it. It's really actually quite big. It's about 6 inches longer than the beehive.
Yeah. So where'd you put this? Where'd you put this? Where you put this at the tile? Where you put an entry or?
No, I just take the towel. I rip it into 3 sections lengthwise.
Yeah.
And you can see the Dixie on there.
They just get tangled in that, eh?
And their legs get caught in it. There's a couple little beetles right here. The stupid dead ones, the stupid little things. But I lay it from the front to the back. Now you can use Swiffer sheets and put it in the corner, but these towels would go the entire length of the colony. And what I do is I just take it and when they're really bad, when I break the boxes apart, I lay one across the top of each box. And the bees propolize it fairly quickly, but the first few days they'll catch the beetles, and it's just littered with beetles. Like there'll be, and if it's a bad hive, it'll have a couple of hundred beetles on 1/3 of. I use each sheet for 3 ways. I just shred it. It rips lengthways.
And in
the beetle blaster, you can use oil and you can use diatomaceous earth. But what I actually do is I use, and it's, I don't know if I should tell you this, but it's a roach bait. I put a couple little drops in there and it just annihilates the beetles that's down in the beetle blaster.
They're coming.
So the bees can't get in there, but the beetles can. There's a beetle blaster right here. And I'll put a drop on, I'll put a drop right here, and I'll put a drop over about like 2 drops, about 1/3 on each side. And that will fill completely up with dead beetles. I don't know how 1 drop can kill that many. And when you think when the roach bait was, when they covered it, but it literally fills all the way up to the top. No more beetles can fit in, and it fills up. So then I take them and
that's brilliant.
The bees will propolize the top as well, the little holes. Some hives will, some won't, but I'll just poke holes in there and then I'll just shake, because these things are expensive. So I'll shake all the beetles out. And I did that today. I shook all the beetles out. There's probably thousands of beetles in one of these things.
Wow.
And I'll shake them out, and then I just rebait it and stick it in there. Now, if the beetle blasters, if they start to break down, the plastic is brittle. If there's a hole in here and the bees can get to that roach bait, it'll kill bees just like it will beetles. Wow. So if they're breaking down at the integrity, if there's a hole in it, the bees can get to it. Obviously, I throw the beetle blaster away. But the recommend, the approved method supposedly is to use like oil, mineral oil, or cooking oil in there. Or a lot of people use diatomaceous earth, but I have had tremendous. I literally have probably saved, I don't know how many colonies over the years using these 2 methods. With this year, I may try. There are some things you can drench the ground with in the evening time. When the bees aren't out flying, or if it's on the ground, they're not crawling down there much anyway. But that goes in the ground, it'll penetrate, and the larvae, when they drop out of the hive, it'll kill the larvae as well. And so. That's kind of what I do. That's my techniques. I'm open to any suggestions, though. Anything that'll work, because I cannot stand hive beetles. They are the worst little devils. I hate them.
Yeah, I guess when the job gets heavier, you use heavier hammers, right?
Oh yeah, usually,
so that roach bait would be a heavier hammer.
Yeah, usually you don't see many beetles this time of the year, but I'm already seeing them. I'm already seeing them in my hives. They're not really destroying any hives yet. This time of the year, because it is a little cooler and the bees are actually building up very strong. The bees have them corralled pretty well, and they're not, the beetles don't seem to be super active as far as like trying to reproduce. I don't see any beetle larvae this time of the year, but man, when those beetle, yeah, you know, and I know people talk about the roach bait, but I don't see how it could. To me, it's the safest thing to use, because if you put oil in it, if you could spill the oil on bees, the bees die instantly. The diatomaceous earth can also kill the bees. The diatomaceous earth can kill them just like the bait can. So I had some colonies today I went in that I haven't been in months, and they were literally full to the top with beetles, and those hives I'm sure would have been dead. Between the towels and the beetle blasters, I've annihilated thousands and thousands of beetles over the years. And every dead beetle is the best kind.
Is the best thing, yeah. Like
Just like dead mice is the
yeah,
best kind.
yeah, absolutely. Anyway, thank you, Bruce, for that. Ian, question. I did watching one of your videos about hygienics. You've been doing testing, a lot of things. For many years, you're doing beekeeping. I would say in a massive operation. How important it's hygienic in selection of queens? Because a lot of people doesn't understand how important it is. I would love to know
I'd say
your opinion.
hygienic behavior is probably one more of those selection criteria I'm kind of incorporating into my breeding program, because I'm after, well, the theory is hygienic behavior will make for a healthier hive, as it can clean out their colonies a little bit better. So if we have infections with something like sac brood, they might be able to clean out easier. American foul brood, well, maybe not so much with that, but European foul brood, you know, just those hygienic behaviors within the colony, it all leads towards positive outcomes. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm incorporating the hygienic test, just to try to increase the behavior. I started with good stock. The Carnioleans coming from Kona, some coming out of Oliveras from California. I mean, they have good breeding programs there. So they have my base stock come from a good start. So I have that inherent hygienic behavior within my stock, but I'm just trying to hone it down a little bit more to allow it to express itself a little more. And my testing showing, you know, I tested 15 colonies last year of my breeders, and I had 2 or 3 that tested over 90%. And I think you need 90 or 95% to be hygienic. And all the rest were, you know, I had a couple at 75 and all the rest are down around 50 or so. So the hygienic behavior wasn't really expressing a lot there, but maybe as I keep layering that into my breeding program, my selection criteria, might be able to improve that a little bit more. But I'm not selecting solely for it. I have lots of other traits that I'm looking for, that I'm honing in, that are desirable. It's just one more of those selection things that I want to bring into my stock a little bit better.
How do you test, Ian? How do you test for hygienics?
Basically, just using the freeze kill brood test with liquid nitrogen, that 24-hour brood removal. And so it's a little bit cumbersome. So we hire our tech transfer program up here to come in and do that, because they have the facility to do that. And it just takes an afternoon to go pop it into our breeder yard, you know, test the 15 colonies and then come back the next day to see what's up. So that's, we're not, I know it's a lot of guys down in California that are more in the breeding business, and they do a lot bigger survey than I would. But this is just a little small scale thing. I'm just trying to improve, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Do you do any of that, Bruce?
I don't. I just, with me, time is so limited as far as just trying to work full time.
Do you buy your queens in?
I'm sorry?
Or I stepped on you. Sorry. Do you buy more of your queens in, or are you into grafting and developing your stock?
No, I usually create a few of my own, because I get swarm cells in the spring and I do splits with those some. But as far as actually breeding, I've tried a little bit of grafting or a little bit of queen production. I used a Nico system one time, but it's just, to me, it's just so time sensitive that if I have a day at work that I work late or I have issues and I miss those, you know, I mean, there's just so much to it. And so I was just talking to my wife about how, man, we don't have a queen breeder right here. Now, there's some down in Florida, you know, 40, 50, even 100 miles away, but we don't have anybody right here that does it on any type of a scale. And the other issue with my bees is they are just a little bit feisty, as you've seen in some of my videos. And I don't know, my confidence isn't where it needs to be. But what I've started doing is buying cells. We'll go down to Florida, me and a couple of my buddies we'll order 100 or just however many at a time, and we'll split them up. For sales, you pay $4 to $5 per cell, and then you can split very quickly. I can take some of these double deeps and stuff out here.
How much is mated queen?
For $4, I'm sorry.
How much is mated queen? How much you have to pay for mated queen? Open mated queen.
Well, I'll address that in a second, but I can just split these and I can drop a cell in both hot colonies and not worry about finding the queen because it's $4. A mated queen, it's anywhere from minimum 20, $25, but that's you have to buy a bunch. And for the really good quality ones, like I'm buying some from Jose out in California, I'm gonna pay $34 a piece, and I'm buying 20 of those. And so, I can buy 6 or 7 cells for the price of one mated queen. However, if I want to make sure I'm altering my stock to either be more hygienic or calmer, nicer, or for whatever traits I want, you have to have mated queens, I think, to do that, because obviously with cells, they're mating with drones that are feral drones or my drones that are somewhat aggressive. And so I'm trying to gradually try and get my bees calmed down a little bit. They're just defensive. They're not, I have occasional hives that are absolutely nasty that I just have to do something with, but for the most part, they're not real bad. But I don't want to sell nukes and queens to people that are going to just not enjoy working them. Hobby beekeepers and such that watch videos of people with nice bees in the miner. You pretty much have to wear a jacket till you work mine. You can't. On a beautiful spring day, sometimes you can go in with a veil or just a veil, but usually, like right now, it's just not realistic to do that. I have to wear a jacket in my bees now.
Yeah. So my one, I'm telling you, when I started beekeeping, I bought some queen. Well, I bought some one nuke, and I start from one colony, and it was the weather was not right, and so we didn't check them, so I just took the box, move them into my apiary, new fresh apiary, so exciting and everything. 2 weeks later, you can't not even walk to the nuke. They were so feisty. The queen was so bad. So at the time I just like, whoa, what's going on in there? I know straight away. I was watching quite a lot of YouTube things and a lot of stuff, and I asked a friend of mine, a beekeeper, what you doing? He said, well, it's only one way, is requeen it as soon as possible. Oh, check at the store and what's the brood in their situation, make a split in half, get 2 mated queens, and move away from here, move them out from here, completely different place, and that's what I done. And from this point, I learned the lessons, and I learned my lessons. And a lot of people need to understand this is really bad when neighbors coming into you and say, "Hey, I have stung by your bees." I was like, "What?" So I done it, and I'm never going again, Bruce. I just never again. A feisty gun, one's gonna start to fly to my face. I know when there's a busy day, there's a temperature or thunderstorm calm, something like this. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But after that, no chance. My bees, we have gloss out and fine.
I think you should always give them a couple of chances because the weather can play a big role. But Ian, what are some of the characteristics that you really, with your queens, what are your primary characteristics you're looking for?
Oh, good question. Yeah, it's basically just the ones that thrive. That's basically, I know it sounds very basic, but that's what I do. I'm a man of continual assessment, so I'm always assessing my stock throughout the spring. Spring up here is very intense and very short, and is just out of a long winter. So anything that's thriving within that very stressful point of time are the ones that I want to breed from, because there's things going on that's beneficial and is favorable for this type of beekeeping environment. So I'm always assessing and I'm always identifying the ones that are thriving, because those are ones basically I'm going to have to put more attention towards. But then I just focus in on those ones and breed from all the ones that produce me lots of splits or lots of bees or winter very well. I'm looking like up here, we put our hives away end of October, November. They're in the shed right now, and they're not going to leave until April. I hope we get them out before April. So that's a long time, and I keep them in a single box. And I don't know if you watch my videos lately, but I'm walking the aisles, and these bees are just boiling full of, like boxes boiling full of bees. So I need that single box full of bees. I need them to be able to make it through 5.5 months with what I have there for feed. So they got to be easy. They got to be very conservative with their stores. So we're looking for We don't want Italian because those ones spark up. They eat way too much feed. So it just naturally gravitates toward the darker type German bee, like Carniolan type, get some Caucasian traits. So more of a conservative type bee. I don't track any of my stock in my breeding program for production. Maybe I should, but it's just too much information. So I just focus all my selection criteria right during like that month, 2 months in the spring when it really counts. And, you know, when I started breeding, I used to bring in bees from California, from Hawaii, New Zealand, Chile, all over the place. And I had like temperament within my yards. But as soon as I cut out the imports and started breeding my own bees, they become very docile. And I didn't select for that. It just naturally happened. And I think what was going on there is, even though they genetic test some of the bees coming in from California for not having the Africanized genetics, I think because of the cold environment we have up here, Africanized genetic, the bees just can't handle cold weather. It's just my selection and my year after year, it just naturally weeded all those aggressive traits out because of that. And I have a very gentle stock. I don't know if you notice in some of my yards, hives we're going through, and we hardly need smoke in some of these. I remember when I was importing queens into my operation, I remember forgetting the smoker in the honey house, going out to the yard to do some work, and they were hot enough that the crew was not working effectively. So we had to come back and get the smoker to be able to carry on our work. Now, if we forget the smoker, or if we run over the smoker or whatever, forget matches, we wait till noon until we're back at the honey house, pick up the smoker to carry on the rest of the day. So it says a lot about it that way. Yeah. Absolutely. So I hope that answered your question, Bruce.
I think bees around here, because most of mine historically have been, you know, I've caught a lot of swarms. I've done a lot of splits. I've used, a lot of them have a lot of feral traits. That I don't have a lot of pure, quote unquote, purebred bees out here. The ones where I do replace some queens with mated queens are, but I've ordered some, you know, Cordovan type stuff out of California that just, you could almost, you didn't have to use it. I mean, they were so calm and gentle and just, but they don't seem to be as tough. I don't mind them being a little defensive, but man, some of them, when I first started in the bees, my mentor told me it's okay for them to be defensive, but when it's just miserable to work them, it's just not worth it. And I just want to get my bees nicer. I'm sure we have in these feral colonies. I'm sitting right here in the woods, you know, woods all around. There are bees all around in the woods here. They thrive, I think, in nature. And so a lot of feral drones, a lot of feral bees. The only way I know to really get them to be super gentle is just to bring in some mated bees, you know, from other areas, and just try to diversify and figure out some stock, and then maybe I can. I'm not trying to complain about my bees. You saw the pictures of my colony yesterday that I went through. I've always really based it on, like what you said, which colonies thrive. Yeah. But a lot of the ones that thrive the most are the ones that are the nastiest. And so I've got to figure out how to get thriving colonies, but nice bees as well. And that's kind of my goal this year, is to get just, you know, what Cayman says, you know, great queens, dead mites, and I would add beetles to that, and good nutrition. And number 4, I would say, is I just want to get an average younger queen in my colonies. I think a lot of my collapse has been because of old queens, and I also want to get my temperament down a little bit nicer.
Yeah, I agree with that. Younger queens are definitely a really good strategy to focus on. That's what I do within my operation. You talk about all those bees around you, those wild bees. We don't have that up here at all. Like, there isn't any type of feral bees live within our area. Like, honeybees naturally don't live in this area because it's way too cold. They just need, if there's any swarms escape and get into a barn, or there's not even any place in the woods here for them to, you know, hunker down.
You can see where I'm sitting right now, the woods. It's just woods. There's my colonies down there, woods all around this bee yard.
So you have an impossibility to, you know, you have so much variability within the mating just because of that. You'd have a lot harder time honing down in the certain traits than I would, because I'm more of a closed system here with nothing else around except for me, where you have everything around. So that makes it a lot more difficult.
And there have been, last I heard, there have been no confirmed cases of Africanized bees in Alabama, but there are some non-Africanized bees that are nasty. People always think man, your bees are African. But I think there's some genetics and some feral bees or other type of bees that can be kind of nasty. I don't know that I've ever experienced true Africanized bees. I doubt if I have.
Okay.
I've had some that I think could have given them run for their money, but I don't know that I've ever experienced what that truly is like, because I think that true Africanized bees are just ridiculous. And so,
yeah, we don't know. I don't know. I say Africanized when I was commenting about my aggression in that. In Canada, we have no concept of what an Africanized bee is. So we just hear everything on the media, and the media is all hype. And you know, it's sensationalized.
There probably is a touch. I mean, I think there are very few quote unquote purebred bees in the world anymore, at least down around here. I think there's probably in most bees, maybe in some of the areas of California where they have like they've really, they've just been doing queen breeding for years and years and years and perfected it. But I think in most of the country, you're going to have a little touch of everything in your bees, especially your wild bees that you catch. You're going to have, you probably do have a little touch of Africanized. You probably have some Carniola and some Italian. You probably have a little touch of everything. And on the, whatever's been brought into the country, I think bees are so good at diversification. That's how they've survived. And I think that most bees, even mated queens that you buy, a lot of them will have, unless you're in an isolated situation like you are, a lot of them will have some traits, going back for many generations. And so I don't doubt that there are some Africanized tendencies or maybe even some genes in some of these bees, but, pure Africanized honeybees, I don't know that there has not been a confirmed case in Alabama. So, last I heard. Now, all the states around us have had them, and they've got swarm traps set around the border in Alabama, like on the rivers and on the border. And whenever they catch swarms, I think they actually kill them. And I think they evaluate them to see if they're truly Africanized bees. And I don't know that we have any cases of true Africanized bees, but that doesn't mean they're not here, just, confirmed. So, guys, I need to kind of jump off of here. I got still a little bit to do, and I got some things to do this evening. But hey, it's been a blast. I appreciate you having me on. Sebastian.
Thanks, Bruce. Thank you very much. You popping up.
It's been fun. Nice to talk to you.
Have a nice rest of the day.
Ian, we got to get on the stream chat soon. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of fun there. I always check up on you whenever you're doing those live chats. So keep up the good work on that.
I always check in.
Thanks. This is pretty late for you, Sebastian. All right, you guys.
See you later. Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, bye-bye.
See you later. Bye-bye. Yeah, so Ian, that was great. He popped up, Bruce. Got to have a good chat about his bees in almond pollination. What you will say to the beekeepers, the first beekeepers, the people who started the first winter, what you will say to them, what they need to do now and the spring, because this is the most important time in the season when they started the bees.
Yeah, like you're talking hobby type beekeepers, like right into the business. Or
yes, right into the business, and even if they are around about 30-40 hives, because I did see last year quite a few beekeepers lost like 20 hives from 40. 50% was gone.
I'll answer that question by flipping the question right back at you, Sebastian. What would you think would be the most important aspect about keeping bees and providing that little bit of advice to new beekeepers? What would you say?
I would say one word. It's so in the spring and the summer, the bees can bring in themselves everything. In the winter, it's always you. You should looking after what they're doing. They're inspecting the time. A lot of people think temperature. Oh, is it cold? No, it's not cold. 6 degrees, bees flying. So if you open the roof for 5 minutes or 1 minute even, just to check out what's going on over the top. You know exactly what's the visibility in the hive, what's going on in the story in your hive. And that's a very crucial, and get the right visible look from the top when you lift the roof up and then you see what's going on in the hive. I know you can't do it because your bees in the shed, but I see a lot of comments, and I did just reading actually news about French people did about working on what you're doing, keeping bees over winter in the shed, because they reckon the temperature warm what we have in UK and in France as well, up and down, is not good for the bees. No. So a lot of people actually reckon the bees better stay in the winter from October to up to early first of March or second week of March. I did read actually article on this today about they basically the bees staying better. Well, I agree because I see your update all the time. I'm most of the time watching your video. Most videos I did watch it for the last few years now, and I reckon that's very crucial as well. A lot of people doesn't know when is winter like you have. When you got temperature -10 all the time, -5 all the time, the bees not working. They're looking after the queen. There's a cluster. The bees working. But in temperatures what we have here in UK, up and down, it's a
Yeah.
very danger. Very easy lose the hives of the storage of the food. So I always do since I start beekeeping. At about 15th of December, I'll buy some funding. No pollen, just a pure funding, and I put on top. No crown boards. I put straight on the frames, on the bars. So it's more accessible to the bees. I cut a small hole. If they need, they will popping up. They will eat. You will not be worried. It will be really broken my heart if I lose the colony. And I know I should put the funding on top.
Yeah, just a
So
little bit of insurance, I guess. With the
yeah,
indoor wintering strategies that they're adopting in France and in the UK, they'd be talking about having refrigeration
yeah, they will have to.
incorporated
Yeah,
into their. Yeah, that would, as long as they could incorporate that into their strategy, then I think that would be a dynamite option. I was talking to a
yeah,
guy. Oh, where was he from? Bulgaria. That he was talking about winters being not as cold as mine, very wet. But
yeah,
from my impression, it seemed very stable because he's right on the Black Sea there, I think,
yeah. Black
somewhere.
Sea. Yeah, so
But
it's
if
quite
you,
stable temperature.
yeah, and that, I mean, and he's doing very well outside because of the stability. If you're experiencing variability all the way through winter, that can cause problems, as you're saying. So by
Mm,
adopting a strategy where you can take them out of that variability by providing some kind of a false climate or like a
yeah,
controlled climate, that would, I know guys in be not in Quebec, they have much the same kind of winter. It goes up and down and up and down and up and down. And
yeah.
a lot of those guys winter in sheds with refrigeration just because of the variability. But and they keep them in for an extended period of time, and they do very
Mm.
well that way. But it's very expensive because you got to then run refrigeration to be able to keep these conditions cool,
But
and then you have all these other dynamics going on, like uh, if you hold them in for too long, you're not doing yourself any good either. You got to be able to take them
yeah,
out when they need to be taken out. So it's kind of
absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And also, it will be the storage of if you feed your bees for the winter, you set them up then for the winter. If they got 20 or 30 pound storage there, their storage will be quite nice through the winter because the temperature stays stable, and
Yeah.
that's how the bees go nice to the winter. Obviously, Varroa treatment is one of the all of the beekeepers need to working on
Yeah.
what they're doing. That's the question I ask you. Want to ask you, and you, I know do you using Apivar? I'm right, and strips, and you doing Varroa treatment by oxide acid as well. But I did see you since you just done it once. You done it once last year,
Yeah.
if I'm right. Is that
Yeah.
you change the strategy a little bit for that, or
Yeah. That kind of leads into your first question you asked me about advice to give another beekeeper.
yeah,
Um, it would be exactly this: is keep managing your husbandry, keep on top of your husbandry of your hives. You got to control the diseases. You got to know what's going on with all your pest situation at all
yeah,
times, because that's the most important thing. I got to appreciate that honeybees, just the very nature that's sick, leaves themselves vulnerable, and it exposes all the rest of the hives around them for about 2 miles to that sickness, and it just spreads it around. So as beekeepers, we need to be able to layer responsibility onto ourselves and appreciate that we need to look after our problems at home so we don't influence it to other guys around us. So one of the pests we have to look after is varroa mite. So I'm not sure what you use in the UK. If you're allowed to use, are you allowed to use Apivar?
yeah, we using API but I didn't. I using API both. I did watch a video from Bob, and I asked him question privately, what he thinking about this. He said if he is right temperature at right time, and you using this, it will be good effectively. And they was actually are using it in the right time, because what it was, I have header honey. Header honey is up to like end of September. So sometime it's in early week, depends of the temperature. However, we could have even in the first week October. So I use straight away, as soon as I took a supers out, I put straight on Apigard on these colonies, and I actually done a great result. Was temperature quite nice as well, with perfect temperature was for that. But then I kept it up to about the second week of December, and I was checking if they're broodless. I just, was nice temperature, was heat them up like 15. So I said, oh, that's okay. I'll open the hive, see if they're broodless. And I did broodless, and I did using oxalic acid, but I using that's apiboxal, which is not a pure oxalic acid, because we can't using pure oxalic acid. We have to using apiboxal, which is basically have less of oxalic acid in the product, but it's effectively, if really effect. I done it 3 times. I hit them 5 days apart, and the drop mites was really incredible. Just incredible mites drops.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'll give you 2 more minutes. I got to run. I'm being called back
yeah,
to the farm for work. But just to comment on the oxalic acid that we use here, you're right. We only use the one treatment. We're very specific when we target with our oxalic acid, and as a vapor, we don't like to dribble in the fall just because we're confining them for so long. And I found maybe they ingest some of that, and maybe it's not so good for their guts, and it maybe compromise them through the winter. So we vaporize it to them. There's no brood within the nest at all. There's very little. So all the mites are exposed. So we find that 2 to 3 gram treatment does a really good job dropping all the rest of the mites that maybe got missed by the Apivar treatment. And I found ever since I started using oxalic acid within my treatment rotation, it helped. I don't know if this is the right word for it, but regenerate. Maybe helped regenerate the effectiveness of the Apivar for some reason. It's just really odd. I wasn't using oxalic for off the start, just Apivar, and my efficacy was getting lower and lower and lower until I really had problems one fall, like 5% mite counts. And that's pretty high for us going into winter, because if we have counts of 5%, they're dead coming out of winter. It's a very low threshold. So then I hit the bees that fall. I hit them with oxalic acid, and I used one of those great big cannons, hit them twice actually that fall. I left 1 yard not treated. So after my oxalic acid treatment in the fall, my mite counts went from 5% down to 0. I couldn't count them. That control yard I put into winter, it held its 5% mite count going into the winter shed. So coming out of the shed in the spring, all the colonies I had treated with oxalic acid, I had like a 10% loss, but they were very small because they're compromised, and that's because of the mite damage, I think. High levels of deformed wing virus in them. The yard I didn't treat fell completely apart. It was like 75% loss out of the shed, and the colonies that survived still had 5% or 6% mite counts on them, and they basically, the yard just disappeared on me because I couldn't even revive them with treatments. So that told me if I didn't treat with oxalic acid that fall, I would have lost my entire operation. So ever since then, I've been continuing on with my Apivar with the late season oxalic acid treatment, and I've been able to hold my mite counts down. And I relate that to the use of the combination of the two. I hit them with the amitraz, and then I hit them again later on with the oxalic. I think the oxalic maybe mops up all those residual, maybe resistant, maybe, I'm not sure, or tolerant, maybe is a better word, of those mites. Yeah. But there's also, they're doing quite a bit of work up here on oxalic acid, and it's interesting. We're studying the oxalic acid when the colonies go broodless. I know there's a lot of work in the States. They're trying to use oxalic with brood, and that's a different dynamic. It doesn't, maybe not the same rules apply, but when we're dealing with a broodless colony, it seems to be, well, it's effective on the mites because it drops them dead. But there's also something else going on, and we're not sure what it is, and they're investigating it in the university here. Even with the treatment with oxalic acid, and even if it doesn't drop the mites, they're finding the colonies that have been treated with oxalic acid shows a benefit in the spring with better health. And they're not
Yeah.
exactly sure what is going on there. Maybe there's
Yeah.
some kind of a sublethal effect that's affecting maybe a viral, maybe, I don't know, or maybe it's providing some kind of sublethal negative effect to the residual mites that are on the bees,
Yeah.
and maybe they're not reproductive because of that, and it just makes an ultimately healthier hive later on. But there's dynamics going on there. We're not sure of what to make of
Maybe
it yet.
it's mites got a lot of disease as well, which they passing on to the base, and
Yes, and that's a really good point. It could be exactly that too. This
it's
oxalic is doing like a secondary type of
yeah,
benefit by maybe targeting another type of pathogen on
yeah,
the mite themselves that would be
yeah.
transferred to the bees. So
A
we're
lot.
always talking virus, right? So
Mm,
that's as far as my depth goes. Is it
yeah,
helping with the virus, or is there something else going there that
yeah.
we're not
It,
aware of? You know?
and also I have one question before you go, Ian. I know you're rushing. And that's what I would love to have your answer is Nozema.
Oh
Um,
yes.
I would love to know a lot about this, and I believe a lot of who will watch us next few weeks or months or years. I would love to know what is your opinion and how you treating and how easy you find that straight away on a hive, just to like
Yeah, yeah. Nosema is a very controversial topic. I have neighbors I don't even know how to spell Nosema. But with my operation, like I'm a livestock producer. I'm a believer in a healthy gut is a healthy
Yeah,
animal,
absolutely. Yeah,
and having an infection like a fungal infection or bees can do nothing but drag that bee down, and that's found in study. So
yeah,
I'm always tracking my bees for their fungal infection because I think that just helps us, even though we can't do much about it. It just helps us put more information together to be able to determine what's actually going on within our hives. You
yeah.
talk to some beekeepers, oh, my hives are falling apart. You know, you ask, well, what's going on? They point to the farmer. Well, that's a sprayer. The farmer is spraying. So, okay, well, what's your disease situation? They don't know their disease situation. I was like,
Mm.
well, if you don't have all this information at hand, how can you make the assumption that
You
it's happened?
can't.
Something
Yeah.
else is affecting
Mm.
your bees. I will
Mm.
provide them with a consideration when they point their finger to somebody else that's affecting their bees, if they know what's going on at home
Yeah.
first. And if they can tell me their hives are clean, then you can start looking out. But you can't start looking out until you examine yourself, right? So,
Investigation. Yeah.
yeah, so
Investigation first.
you got to
In.
know what's going on.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm always tracking my nosema, and I won't slag any treatments, but there's some treatments on the market right now that can be used for nosema. I used to use them; they're very expensive, and I did studies, little trials to see what's going on. So I treated
Yeah.
and I didn't treat, and what I found was the hives that we treated were so variable within my outcomes, I couldn't make any sense of it. And the colonies just got sicker, even sicker. The colonies I didn't treat for that gut disease, they seemed to be more predictable in their, what's the word for it, in their behavior.
Yeah.
And they seemed to handle the situation better all by themselves. And
Mm.
there's one winter, and I'm just a farmer talking out of his ass. So you got to
Yeah. Yeah.
realize
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
I remember one winter I had spore counts within my shed up to 75 million spore counts. I was like, whoa, that's a tremendous nosema count load. They come out. I treated with with the treatment on some of them. It didn't do a whole hell of a lot of good. The colonies that I focused on nutrition, the colonies I focused on putting patties and
Yeah.
fortifying your diet actually handled that disease better. you know
Yeah.
so what does that tell you? That tells you that we don't know really what's going on,
Yeah.
and what are we supposed to do about it? But maybe we should follow suit, as just being in the practical sense is, if we
Mm.
can't control it with the treatment, then we have to focus on overall health. And that's kind of my strategy when I beekeep overall. As I'm combating pesticides, I'm combating pests, parasites, our own chemical treatments within the
Mm.
colonies, all these diseases, all these circumstances, the stresses that's going on, weather, environmental, beekeeper
Yeah.
applied stress, all this. My main strategy is to focus on nutrition, focus on their health. And Bruce
Yeah.
just touched on it too. Focus on
Yeah.
the youth of the colony itself.
Yeah.
And if we can control those types of situations, they're better apt, I feel, to be able to handle all those other stresses around them. And that strategy seems to be working for me. So I'm executing it just on simply that. But just because they look good now, and just because they seem to be handling the situation at hand, doesn't mean that I don't stop monitoring, because this all comes together with the proper plan. You monitor, you assess, you analyze, you kind of make, assumptions on the best information at hand, and then you just keep moving forward with the best strategies. Like you say, you have this Appy Guard, I think you said.
Appy Guard,
yeah. So the only way you know that's going to actually work is if you monitor your colonies to see if it actually does work, right? And if it doesn't, then drop it. If it does, then keep on going with it. Yeah.
And I was very curious. I was very curious, so I just basically said, I talking to Bob. I follow him on YouTube. I follow you and Cayman, and I know exactly what we're talking about. It's dead mites and nutrients. For me, it's Q. Is the focus on this, and it's all about us. Like I said earlier, winter, it's us. We have to looking after the bees and make sure they got everything what they need. If we want them in the spring flying and bringing us nice lovely honey and keeping see the bees flying. So and I did ask him, Bob, and Bob, the answer was for me really clear. He said you need to using in time, exactly in the time, and that's what I use it. Same as what you just described of the Nozema is the same thing. You got the nutrients, and nutrients. And I was just watching your video. Well, it was questions. I think it was on the Brazilian guy. He asked you questions about the nutrients and what's the story. And I was watching this, and I know this because I using last year Patty and absolutely brilliant. I started using my one. I have a friend of mine. He's a bee farmer, and he make his own one like yourself. And so I got from him good ones. And I could tell you this now: the patty from a shop, what we bought some, I think was Mine Lake. Um, the bees taken, but when I put a friend of mine, I tell you what, I put in there. 2 minutes later, I see a lot of bees like cluster coming on top there. I was like, whoa, that is different. That's the goodness in there.
Yeah, when you talk to Randy Oliver, he'll tell you the best patty is the one that's fed.
I watching Randy Oliver and Michael Palmer quite a lot as well. I follow their guys. And one thing before you go, a last one, I want to just thank you. After a long time, we try and get done. I know you're busy digging the snow and looking after your farm.
Yeah, we have lots of snow here. I tell you, this winter has been more of a traditional type winter with lots of snow and lots of cold. So it's actually refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. I love winter, so I love snow anyway.
I'll just mention, or I just noticed Bruce's comment there asking whether the Nozema's worth with the hives stuck in the shed for months on end. And that's a really tough question to ask or answer. This Nosema serrana is a lot different than Nosema apis. Nosema apis used to cause us a lot of issues in the shed, and is very evident because the symptom as Nosema apis was like a shitty front, like the bees would come out and poop, and they just seemed to be a symptom that followed the apis. But Nosema serrana came in, and maybe I'm just not seeing it because one of the symptoms of Nosema serrana is no symptoms. You don't see it. The bees, they just go out, they fly off and die. They don't defecate on the front. They just die. And you see these colonies that dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And you don't see evidence of anything else other than just a colony is shrinking and disappearing. That's Nosema serrana. And we don't necessarily identify that all the time because we don't see any other external symptoms of it. So the only way I can tell if I have Nosema within my colonies now is through testing. I'm testing my colonies right now. I have 0 Nosema in my colonies. That's the first time I've ever went in the shed without any Nosema. But yeah, when you have gut infection in your hives and you put them inside where they can't fly for 5 months, that's pretty hard on them. So you do see more loss. You see colonies just kind of giving up and just flying out onto the floor. You set them out in the spring if they make it that long, and you'll have a colony this. It just goes, smaller and smaller and just disappear on you.
Yeah, is another one. He said Bruce, isn't there? don't have bees and never stuck in the hives for long. Yeah. That is true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you just say, that this is because they stay a long time in the shed for 5 months. That's quite,
And the
that's
biggest
quite
problem with nosema is like, well, there's secondary infections. Like nosema is associated with black cell queen virus. So it's, you got nosema in your yard, you try raising queens. Like son of a gun, you can't raise queens with black cell queen virus. It just makes it impossible. So then guys will treat with that treatment for nosema to help with the black cell queen virus, because there's like the two diseases kind of coexist together for some reason. What the heck was I saying now? But the problem with nosema is the malnourishment, right? The malnourishment of the bees, because what it does is it mines all the nutrients within their guts to be able to propagate
yeah,
themselves. So the bees,
yeah,
they actually go malnourished, and the young bees, it doesn't allow them then to create the jelly they need to feed the bees. So then it's just kind of like an endless loop. These young bees, they can't feed the brood. The brood's malnourished. They're coming out as, not as functional, and it just becomes a problem. The
yeah,
nosema in their gut seems to screw around with the life age of the bees, so the
yeah,
older bees die off a lot sooner. So the graduation of bees throughout the nest to divide the labor is thrown on its head. So then you have uh, not enough bees to cover all the work, and that's where you get the colonies just dwindling because of that cycle of
yeah,
problems. They can't keep up with the development of the colonies, and they can't get themselves out of it. Sometimes the bigger colonies are infected with nosema, they're able to loop themselves out of the infection because they can shed all that disease by the old bees just taking it away, and they can reestablish the nest with the young bees, and they just kind of, they get back up on their feet, and they're able to manage the
mm,
situation as they can fly, as they're well fed. But it's one of those problems I think is fundamental to a lot of the issues we have within our
mm.
industry, if you ask
But
me.
I think it's all about the nutrients as well, the enzima. It's all this linked to the nutrients, what you describe, and
Yeah.
and you feeding, spring coming in, you take it out busy of the shed and you start feeding them your nutrients, pollen and everything. What you make, I know what you doing in the operation. A lot of people will fighting with the Nozima, say, oh, it's Nozima, Nozima. But I think you're right, what you say. It's something about the nutrients. And I think this is really important. We take vitamins. We are human, we take vitamins. This bees, when they are 5 months in the shed or 3 months in the winter, they're not flying out because of temperature or rain. Like we have some time in UK, we have sometimes could have 2 weeks rain all the time.
Yeah.
So the bees
Yeah, that's a
absolutely,
problem there. Even though you have pollen available in the nutrients,
yeah,
I mean, you have delays within the forage like that.
yeah,
That that dip of delay
yeah.
is a time of dearth, and if
It's
they don't have enough
it's like
food on
this.
hand, exactly. If they don't have enough food on hand, then they go into panic mode.
Yeah,
Protein stress. If they go into protein stress or cannibalizing brood, they're stepping backwards. That point of
absolutely.
time in stress is when disease sets in. So if you can,
Yeah,
even if there's enough natural forage coming in, if you can just maintain that development all the way through, you just help with the stress within those colonies, and
yeah.
you're much better off for it, right? But that's
Right.
why it's so very important that, and I got to step out here in just a second.
Yeah,
I'm
I
being
know. That's
bugged
what
here,
it's just.
but what was I saying? Nutrition, blah blah blah.
Yeah, and you in that fall you
Oh,
need to be.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's why it's very important to read your nests
yeah,
throughout the
yeah,
spring and
yeah.
monitor what's going on at all times, just to make sure that we know what kind of food reserve situations going on. If they have the
Absolutely.
reserves on hand,
Yeah,
you're easy
no
sailing.
problem.
But if they're hand to mouth, like sometimes these colonies in the spring here, when they're growing, they're bringing in loads of pollen, but you look in the nest, there's no reserve because they're pretty much
No,
taking that pollen hand to mouth
all
and
the time.
making this massive frame, massive
Mm,
hive, like 3 frames open brood. You're like, girls, take it easy a bit, would you?
steady,
Like you're
steady.
just
Yeah,
going.
too
But
early.
and then you get a dearth come through, and there's like,
Gone. Yeah,
so
yeah,
as a producer, we kind of promote those types of environments as we throw supplements at them and that, and just kind of keep that spirit of growth going. So we have
yeah.
to blame on that, but we just got to make sure as producers that we also follow through
Absolutely. Yeah,
and make sure
yeah.
everything's there. So I got to step out here. I'm
All
being
right.
bugged.
Thank you, Ian, for this.
Yeah.
And have a great rest of the evening. And thank you very much. And whoever don't know Ian Steppler, I will put his link to his YouTube channel so everybody could watch him. Every video from him is amazing. What he does is his operation, and I'm telling you this now. He done 1,500 hives, colonies, and quite a lot of nukes. So you could see a lot in actions what he does. Him and this lady, what she doing? What her name was?
My employee, Carrie. Yeah.
Carrie. That's it, Carrie. Yeah.
This year, I'm going to be doing a little more experimental with live streams. Not so much that I'm going to be doing what you're doing like this. I'm doing a little bit of that on my membership side. Which reminds me, send me this video if you don't mind, and I'll put it on my membership side.
I'm a member on you anyway.
Oh, yeah. But what I'm going to be doing is, as long as my workers are comfortable with it, I'm going to be doing some more live streams of my honey house running and live stream of grafting in the builder yard and stuff like that, just to show a little bit more of that type of work. But that's going to be out of the public eye onto the membership side, because I want to keep things kind of confined to not the public eye. Yeah. But anyways, we're going to be experimenting with this whole YouTube dynamic and kind of reach out a little bit more as we can. And so anyways, I got to run. I appreciate the attention, and I'll keep in touch with you, Sebastian.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ian. Have a great day. Thank you.